what other help is available?
So I often say to people, give the mind time to do its thinking before bed. So set a time aside, perhaps in the early evening, and give yourself time with the television turned off and with perhaps the family in another room, and just allow yourself a little bit of time, a little bit of thinking time. Pencil and paper, write down the thoughts that come to mind. You don't, if there are problems, you don't necessarily have to solve them, but just giving it time to do its work. And then, when you do get into bed, it's still likely that there will be some thinking going on, but it may be diluted by allowing that thinking time earlier in the day. Some people are still busy in their mind, even with that. And then perhaps trying to block thoughts can be a useful thing to do. Now, there is a way to do that, a way to try and switch the mind down a gear. And that is by constantly repeating things, some words, to yourself. So, the constant repetition of a single word, rather like some people repeat a mantra, well, that would work too, and of course prayer works for many people. But if they're not your thing, then perhaps the constant repetition of a single word. And I suggest to people the word the definite article. Because by itself it doesn't mean anything. It's not going to take you into another stream of thought. It could be the mat, the rat, the cat, the anything. So just the word the, and repeating that word over and over and over. Now, it's not enough to imagine the word. You actually have to move all the vocal apparatus as if you were going to say it out loud, but you take the voice out of it. So you whisper it to yourself. And I'll do it out loud, but it would be a silent version of this. You would say the, and so on. So constantly repeating that word and moving all the vocal apparatus as if you were saying it. And that helps to interfere with the flow of other thoughts. It doesn't always do it completely, but it helps. Alternatively, people try mental arithmetic. And then you may say, oh, that's not something that's going to stimulate the mind. Well, yes, but usually less so than the other thoughts that might be going on. So perhaps starting at 10,000 and taking 7 away, and taking 7 away from that, and 7 away from that. And this occupies the mind in a fairly neutral sort of way. That's easier than the other thinking that might be going on, particularly if that other thinking is worrying. And then when other thoughts do come to mind, saying to yourself, well, I'll think about that in tomorrow's thinking session.
What other help is available?
Well, I think the main thing that people are going to think about in terms of other help are sleeping pills. Sleeping pills sometimes worry people a great deal, but they can be a real help, and your doctor will advise about this. But they can get you through a short crisis. But they're not recommended for use for more than about a week or so. But that might just break a cycle of difficult and bad sleep for people. But after that, they have problems. You can become used to them, so they don't have the same effect, and most of them will have some level of addiction. And so going on using them for long periods of time becomes problematic. It's fine in the short term, but in the long term it can become very problematic. And they can become part of the problem rather than part of the solution. But people shouldn't be too scared, and it may be that they can be of help in the short term. Something to talk about with the GP. Okay, good.